All right, I think we're on. Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Brokers Riding Waves here, powered by Swell Real Estate and Swell Realty. Um, Everybody, my name is Matt Langen. I'm one of the owners here at Swell Realty. We have a couple others here, faces you'll see. Barry Asimas on with us, the owner, principal broker of Swell Real Estate Company. Ann Assertion, our broker in charge and kind of leader of our North Carolina operations. Madison Sherwood, one of our brokers on the Swell Realty side, as well as Julie Butler, our principal broker for Swell Realty Company. So we're super excited to bring this inaugural episode to you guys, Brokers Riding Waves. Essentially, what we're going to be kind of going through is just talking about bringing to you guys different stories and challenges that we face, real life conversations and scenarios and so forth. And that's kind of what we wanted to bring about and put together. Very sort of conversational style, virtual roundtable-esque, with all of our great brokers and team here that help us support the Swell umbrella in the real estate vertical. So we're again, really excited to get these launched. First one, so you guys kind of bear with us as we sort of find our momentum and our groove and everything. I'm sure things will change as we continue to really get this thing moving forward. But first and foremost, we just want to drive value and provide value to our audience. This is really aimed for real estate professionals, but I think people from all walks of life and other verticals can probably get some good substance from this as well. So we welcome everybody to join and listen in. But definitely all of our real estate friends out there, brokers, owners, team leads, agents, no matter your tenure in the business, if you're brand new, if you've been in for 25 years, I think you'll get a lot of great stuff from this. We have some exceptional leadership on with us that are putting this series together. Can't even tell you how much years experience combined, but we'll kind of go through and you'll learn a little bit about each and every one of us as we launch. But we're again really looking forward to a lot of great things to come. So with that being said, I am going to pass it over to Barry Asimas. This first episode we are basing it around communication, really focusing on communication, and really two pillars to that: agent to client, and then agent to agent. All right, so that's kind of what we're going to unpack today, and again, just kind of open it up to the team and walk through. So with that being said, Barry, I'm going to turn it over to you, man.
All right, thanks, Matt. So guys, appreciate y'all hopping on today. And, all of us get these emails, right? And there's videos and whatnot in them. So I got this one a couple of weeks ago that I forwarded to you, and it was on communication. And I actually, I took the time to listen to it, and it was really good. And some of the things that I had been experiencing as a broker in terms of communication, maybe some issues that our agents were having with other agents or with other clients, I just thought it was really applicable to kind of what we were going through. And then communication, as Matt said, I mean, it's really the basis for life in general. I know Heather, my wife, she's always talking to me about communicate better, and so what is communication? Like, how can we take it and then maybe make sure that our agents and our clients understand effectively what we're trying to communicate to them? So I pulled a definition. Webster says that communication is the transfer of information, ideas, or emotions between a sender and receiver. It is the foundation of human connection taking place through spoken or written words, nonverbal cues, visual aids, and media. So again, like we said, we're going to focus on two areas: agent to client, okay, and then agent to agent. So let's start with agent to client. And I know all you guys are brokers. You still sell, but maybe not as much as you once used to. So you're of course familiar with client communication and making sure that they understand effectively what you're trying to tell them. So when you guys hear agent to client communication, I mean, what's the first thing that pops in your mind? Ann, what do you think?
The process. That's what, to me, that's the most important and the most common series of questions from the onset. A good explanation of the process, and then just following up on that too. Don't just say it one time. We have to go back through it over and over and over again as you're walking out the process.
Yeah, and communication, I mean, obviously, as you become more familiar with the client, it's going to change, right? The dynamics of it will change. So one area, again, this is kind of a business term, but it's called commoditization. And what this is, it's the process where distinguishable branded goods or services become indistinguishable, generic commodities over time, leading to fierce price-based competition rather than brand differentiation. So again, one of the things when I first got into real estate that was pounded into me is, okay, yes, you're selling houses, but really you're selling yourself. And so how do you differentiate yourself, your business, you as the agent from another agent? So Madison, I know that obviously you're a very high producer. Talk to me a little bit about when you meet with a client, how do you try to distinguish yourself from another agent?
Yeah, I think communication is a huge part of that. I think, being upfront with them that I'm going to be your boots on the ground. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. You're not going to be shoved to an assistant or, another person, another agent. I'm with you every step of the way, and I'm going to be communicating with you, because I think we get so caught up sometimes and we forget the mundane of it. We do this every day, and sometimes we have to take a step back and remember most people don't do this every day. Most people only buy or sell a home maybe once in a life sometimes, and others obviously do it more. But I think it's important to take a step back, and I really focus on that with my clients. I think communication is key and really sets us apart from each other.
And Julie, sort of in that vein, again, because we are competing, our agents are competing with other agents, other firms for business. So it's really easy to fall into the trap, especially if, the brokerage, if it's a brokerage like ours, where there's extreme flexibility and autonomy, where an agent can control, the compensation that they're looking for. So how do you get to the place where you're not just competing on price?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and it's all about the value that I bring to my clients, and I want to take a step back and mention this value that I believe very, very strongly in, and this is kind of I think the backbone of the relationships that I build with my clients, and also with, I hope, the agents in my brokerage. And to encapsulate it really simply, and this quote was actually in that video, that recording that we all listened to, but it was a Maya Angelou quote, and it says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said and forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel." Right. And I believe that is so important, because we can present all kinds of facts and figures and inundate our clients with, well, here are the comps, and all of that is important. We have to give them facts. We have to give them the truth. And, because all of that is critical, but we have to be genuine and honest and build trust. And I've been fortunate enough in my career to have built that kind of relationship with clients because of the way I've made them feel, because I've had repeat clients over and over and over and over again, because I've been able to show them that through the value that I've brought to them. And it's not just, I mean, it's a whole bunch of things. Yes, communication is of utmost importance. And, but it's integrity. It's being genuine and honest, and showing the value. And I think when you do that, people don't fight so much with what you're charging them, because they see that you're worth it.
Yeah.
That you're bring them what they want out of that transaction.
Yeah. I think that's good. And again, it's really important. And Madison mentioned this, and it's easy for us. We kind of get into this real estate agent lingo. So we're communicating, but man, we're using words that they may not be familiar with. You know what I mean? So I think it's really, we really, as agents, we really need to just take a second, pause. And then when we're talking, we need to make sure that we're not just talking, but we are actually communicating. We're throwing them the ball, they're receiving it, but they understand what we're saying. And I think it's really important, because you guys, I'm sure you've gotten these calls. I've gotten them from clients that of one of our agents, and they say, hey, your agents, I'm not understanding what they're saying, or they said this and it was really this. So it is so very important to set expectations at the very beginning. So, Ann, talk to me just a little bit. What does that mean to you, setting an expectation with a client?
Helping them understand the step-by-step. So just to go back, for example, the PICRA. I have so many times you hear agents refer to the PICRA, and I'll stop even agents at an open house, and I'll look at their people who clearly, by the looks on their faces, say, "What is the PICRA? You mean the property inspection contingency removal addendum that we have?" That's one thing that I've worked on, because I can certainly go too fast. I've got to slow myself down, and that's huge, because it's just repetitive saying, don't use acronyms unless you're going to back it up, so they can, if we're going to educate them along the process. Eventually, I have found, after doing, a third transaction with the same clients, well, maybe not that long, maybe the second, they get it. They've learned, because I've drilled those acronyms in their head, and then I follow it up with what it means, or vice versa.
Yeah. And I think it's important, again, and I find myself telling this to our agents quite frequently, when they'll call and they'll ask for, okay, what should I do in this particular situation? And I have to remind them, I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, it is your client's decision whether or not they move forward, whether they release, whether they pursue, God forbid if there's a legal situation. But I said, you have to make sure that they fully understand what their options are. Madison and I were dealing with something not too long ago, again with a client, and you talk to them, over the phone, and then you follow up in writing via email or text, and then they confirm it. And then there's no guesswork in terms of if they have fully understood, what we're trying to communicate. So yeah,
may I add on?
Yeah, sure.
So the other thing that I started doing probably, I don't know, about 18 years ago, is I always, when I'm discussing something with a client, I always say, okay, now I'm going to take myself out of representing you. If the buyer, this is how I would advise my seller. So that way I guide my client to understand both sides of it, because it helps them understand what the other person, what the opposition, if you will, is thinking, and it gives them it just helps them better understand the situation.
Okay, so let's transition a little bit. So let's talk about sort of the middle part of the transaction process, because again, it's really easy when you're meeting with a client initially, and it's sort of, you're hot and heavy, so to speak, and you're communicating, twice a day, 3 times a day, but then you take them out, you get under contract, okay, then those next 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks between getting under contract and closing, again, where I found that many agents drop the ball is in terms of their communication, their follow-up. So Julie, talk to me a little bit about, okay, you're under contract, but the client doesn't want to feel like, hey, where'd they go? Where'd you go?
Yes. Well, it's what I do, and what I find is so important is to always say what the next step is, or what the next several steps are going to be, and then keep in touch with them along the way, and then always ask them or let them know that, ask them, do you have any questions for me? And I'm always here for you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And then, because sometimes there are 2 or 3 weeks when there really isn't much going on, but they're full of maybe anxiety or excitement or doubt or what, depending on, especially if it's their first home. And because that's such a big, huge deal to them. And if they haven't heard from you, it's like, ugh, where is she? What's she doing? Or, so
I'm worried.
Just like checking in. Hey, how's it going? Here's where we are, just want to check in. How are you feeling? Just wanted to let you know what's going on in the background. The title people are doing this, the lender's doing this, I'm checking in with everybody. How are you feeling? What's going on with you? Just, if you have any questions, I'm here for you, that kind of thing. So they know that you haven't disappeared. That's so important.
Yes, it is really important. And again, it's just, that's why we have to check ourselves, because we, like Madison said, we do this every day for a living. They don't. Yes, so again, you want to text them or call them like, okay, well, the appraisal's been ordered, or have you gotten your homeowner's insurance, or the title company is doing their initial, whatever. Right. Again, and the milestones throughout, you're continuing to follow up, communicate, and then because you never, I told someone this the other day, you can never over communicate. You can't. No one's going to say, man, I wish they weren't updating me so much. That's not going to happen. It's going to be the opposite of where, gosh, I wish they were updating me. And again, I think that, and every agent does, some agents are much better at this than others. And again, I think that goes back to the value that you're bringing, because again, there's thousands of agents out there, but trust me, they're not all great communicators, and updaters. You know what I mean?
I'll even tell them that, maybe 10 days before closing, I'll tell them, or I don't know, somewhere in the process, I'll tell them that in a few days, I will let you know that it's time to start contacting your utility companies to arrange for them to go into your name as of the date of closing, and I'll send you the links to do those. It's not time yet, but I'll let you know when it is. I mean, I always prepare them ahead of time so that it's not like last minute stuff. I try to give them, that information ahead of time so that they know that for 2 reasons, so that they're not surprised. Oh my gosh, I have to do that. No. But they know that I've got it, that I've got them, I've got their backs, but also so that it's not a surprise. So they know what's coming up.
And you're thinking of them, silence can be loud. And I think even the little things they mean so much sometimes, even if in the middle of the week, if you haven't spoken that week, just touching base. Hey, I've reached out to the lender. Everything's still going smoothly. We're still on track. That is a simple 1-minute text, conversation, phone call that can mean so much to someone. And like you said, Barry, with or I think Julie said with anxiety or, combined with excitement, but that can ease someone's mind so much during that 2-3 week transition.
You can even ask them, look, how are you going to have people helping you move? Just so that they know you care. That's the thing in that, and Maya Angelou quote, they won't forget how you made them feel.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to be, you want to be proactive, you want to be the initiator. You don't want to be reactive where they're the ones that are reaching out. Again, you want to take the approach of being the proactive party, so to
Mhm.
speak, because again, and they may text you and they may have a question. It's like, gee,
Mhm.
that's a great question. I don't have the answer. So tell them, hey, I don't have the answer, but I'll get back to you by tomorrow. Just, and
Mhm.
again, that way they know you're still engaged and you're still fully committed to this transaction. Because listen,
Mhm.
guys, pulling back the curtain, and we all know this as agents, it's all about momentum, and it's all about, closing the deal that you have
Mhm.
in queue, and then going and getting the next one, because that's how we get paid in this
Yeah.
business. But the clients they don't care necessarily that you've got 2 or 3 other deals going on. They only care
No,
about theirs, which
Mhm.
is all
it's
that's totally
true.
totally normal.
Well, and I promise you, if you give them that kind of attention that makes them feel like they're the only ones in your life right now, you'll
Mhm.
get a good review from them too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So again, you're investing when you do this, it is sweat equity, and you're investing not just in your current transaction, but hopefully in future transactions. And I feel like that's where some agents kind of miss the boat. I get it. I've been there, because you're like, I got to take this. I got an appointment, a listing appointment tomorrow. I got this other buyer I got to take out, and it's easy to not communicate as effectively and as often
Mhm.
uh, as you should be. And then
Yeah.
that's when they start wondering, okay, what's going on.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what, also too, I think that we are so blessed to be surrounded by so many military. They come in, that they come, they go, and they, sight unseen. Oh my gosh, military buyers. And I never loved being in that kind of a situation with a client on either side. But they're putting their trust in us. So
Yes.
we don't have to chase them down to help them.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
appreciate it. I feel like that they do. They appreciate it and they understand the value in it. I
Mhm.
find more often than
Yeah.
people,
Oh,
locals.
absolutely.
And I think, going back a little bit to what I mentioned in the very beginning, this term of commoditization and viewing yourself as sort of the product, and then how you're going to differentiate yourself from all these other agents. There were some notes here. It says every interaction is a sample of what it will feel like post sale, which is
Mhm.
really a great, again,
Yeah.
and that's probably
Mhm.
true. Because again, if the person is not really being responsive to you after they get you under contract, that's how it's going to be post sale when it closes. So I thought that was really good. The other thing, buyers notice energy. They remember it. They remember
Mhm.
your tone, your warmth, your clarity. Again, we've all dealt with folks that they're not very nice. You
Mhm.
remember it. And I thought this was really good. Your communication is your demo. So it's like every email, every video, every response, you're basically it's a demonstration of you.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's your calling card.
Yes.
It's your reputation. It is.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. I think that gives us a good feel for communication in terms of agent to client. So let's talk a little bit about agent to agent, which we as brokers we run into quite a bit, because it's usually another agent or another broker that's reaching out to us with not asking us how we're doing, but there's usually a problem on the other end. So again, let's talk about this. Let's break it down, because I feel like this is really important. Agent to client is important, but agent to agent, this is where many agents in this business, in this industry, they just missed the boat. And
Mhm.
again, not to get too corny on you guys, but y'all know our mission statement, the very first principle: treat others how you want to be treated. And I really think you need to carry that through in your business, because how many times are we receiving phone calls, emails from other brokers, and they're telling us that there's an agent that, okay, they haven't responded, or they're looking for an answer and they're trying to close Friday. Like, what, y'all talk a little bit about that, agent to agent. What, Ann, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it could certainly vary for sure. I found myself in that situation very recently, and it was difficult at first to hear a broker, repeat some of the things that an agent may or may not have said. And I found myself at the end of the conversation, basically, of course, all of our agents are a representation of Swell, right? And, I was trying to come up with a nice way to basically to say, don't hold that against us, but that's obviously not what I said, but it's just a work in progress. And I did find myself, though, asking the other broker, well, what would you have done in this situation? Trying to, just trying to let them know that I value their opinion on it. And obviously we're working together for a good result for all.
Yeah. Yeah. And, again, as a broker, and this is what I've done, and I think I've told y'all to do this as well. The first thing I do when we receive a problem is, okay, I look at it from the other side. Okay, if I was the broker for the other agent, like, how would I be viewing this particular situation? But again, with communication with agent to agent, I feel like sometimes agents, Madison, they don't get that the other agent, they're kind of in the foxhole with you, and you guys are both, you're trying to drag that deal to the table. And it seems like sometimes they forget it.
Yeah, we have to remember that we all have the same goal. I say that even to my clients, like, the buyer wants to buy, the seller wants to sell, me and the agent both want to get you guys closed. We want to help our client. I think that agent to agent communication is such a twofold. I mean, in a transaction, I think it's important because that also bleeds into our client communication. Like, even an instance with a picker, like Ann was talking about, obviously describing what the picker is, but I even have a transaction right now where I received the picker yesterday, and it's going to require a structural engineer. The structural engineer can't come out till May 28th. So I am now going to have to communicate, hey, we are being proactive, but there's going to be, what's today, the 21st, a 7-day period where basically nothing's going to happen because we have to now take a step back, get a professional out there. But again, I said it before, silence is loud. If I don't communicate that we are being proactive, number one, the agent's going to wonder what's going on. But two, then their buyer, because I'm on the listing side, their buyer's going to be wondering what's going on. Are they even taking my request seriously? Like, it's important. And I also think even from a referral standpoint, like if you refer a client to someone, let's say in Northern Virginia, or you got a military client side unseen, like Ann was saying, in Washington, you want to know what's going on. That's still your client. I think it's so important to communicate. We're here for each other,
Yeah, no, Madison, that is such a critical point that, again, so many agents miss, again, because I feel like sometimes agents, and listen, I get, we all have egos and we all think that we're the best agent in the world. That's great. But I feel like sometimes agents, they're willing to die on a hill at the expense of the transaction and their client, and I feel like that's where, again, humility, which again is on our mission statement, humility has to come into play, right? Because again, at the end of the day, this is a transaction for your client, and it's really at their discretion, their decision in terms of whether or not they move forward and close or not. But what you just mentioned about the other party, and I think that's where agents miss the boat, is if you hadn't communicated effectively like you just did and told them, hey, this is what's going on. This is not a typical 7-day inspection. We're going to need to extend it. I can't get the structural engineer out there until May 28th. all that other information. If you hadn't done that, then the buyer, the seller, they're just assuming, hey, everything's good, everything's moving along as it should. But because you're able to communicate, now the buyer and the seller, everybody knows what's going on. Again, the expectations have been set clearly. Mm-hmm. And so again, because silence, the other thing that silence can do is, because we all want to believe that stuff doesn't get personal, but guess what? It does. And that's when silence can lead into people getting frustrated, upset, and just like, hey, I don't want to deal with this client anymore. I don't want to deal with that other agent anymore. Boom, deuces, we're out of here. But Julie,
it creates animosity, like
it's competition. It's a competition.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, Barry, what were you asking me?
No, I was just saying, again, I'm sure you've had some experiences where, again, you've had agents that maybe didn't communicate effectively, and then it got personal, and then they wanted to get released from the contract, even though there wasn't any legal standing, because again, communication wasn't good.
Oh, yes. Yes, for sure. It's Madison and I have had this discussion a few times about how agents, it's a lot about ego, but it's just, we need to just set our egos aside, because if, yes, the listing agent's representing the seller, or the buyer's agent's representing the buyer, and we're all doing that, hopefully doing that to the best of our ability for our own clients. But in the end, what we really want is all to get to closing. Our goal, we all kind of have the same goal. We want to all get to closing, and as long as it benefits our clients, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a war, a battle.
That's right.
And not, as long as our buyers and sellers are getting what they want. Yeah. So what I have found is sometimes the egos get in the way, the little, I'm going to fight it out. That kind of mentality is just not helpful. And, and it's and so when I have, like if my agents come to me and say they're in this situation with this other agent on the other side, I just say, well, what it really comes down to is, what does your client want? Because, you might want this, but if your client, maybe they're having a hard time negotiating the PICRA and there's a stalemate. It really comes down to what, let's say the seller refuses to do certain repairs and the buyer won't buy the house unless these repairs are done, and there's a stalemate. I'll just say, well, you have to really ask your buyer, look, do you want this house if these repairs aren't done? Because it's really what the buyer wants. You have to it's about communication, and that's what it really comes down to. And then to whether when a broker calls me about an issue that maybe their agent is not happy with what one of my agents is doing, I listen, and I thank you for telling me it. There's always another side. So then I talk to my agent, and oftentimes it's just a poor communication. Yeah. And then sometimes it's just, what, guys, let's compromise. One time, a couple months ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, it was just it was about a $300 utility bill that came in after closing. And both sides had a right to be upset with the other side. I said, you guys, let's just split it down the middle. Really, is it worth having this long, drawn out fight over $300? Yeah. If you guys just each pay $150, we'll be done with it. And it's not, really. And so they agreed to do that. Sometimes it's just such an easy solution, but they can't find it because they're emotionally
charged.
Anyway, sometimes it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of put a bow on this whole this whole podcast is communication it's got to be in your tool belt. It has to be, because it can help you avoid so many pitfalls, whether it's dealing with your client or dealing with another agent. You just have to use it for all the reasons that we've mentioned previously in this session. It's just, but again, it's basic. It's like people say, well, yeah, I know I've got to communicate, but it's just like anything else. You have to be intentional with your communication. You can't willy-nilly, so to speak, your communication. And again, I find, at least personally and professionally, the better I communicate, I mean, the better things end up being. That's just, and then if there are situations or problems, you know it, and then you can try to figure out a way to fight through them and come up with some sort of resolution. Because when parties don't communicate, nothing happens. Nothing good happens.
Can I add just one more just to kind of piggyback on what you just said? The communication, like you said, is just so important, but sometimes it's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Yes.
And I think that applies to every area of our lives, because you can say, to your kids or to your spouse or to a friend, I don't know, just something, but it's to your client or to your agent, something, but the tone and the intentionality of it should come through us in a way that is genuine and, with humility and I don't know, it just depends on what it is. But if you're saying it with, I don't know, anger or whatever, it's not going to work. So it has
the tone is important for sure. Kind of what Ann said, like taking buyer hat off, putting seller hat on, and vice versa, like being able to see the other side. I think like in an instance where maybe you're representing the seller and the buyer requests a brand new roof, right? Instantly, like you're like, oh my gosh. And the seller's like, no way am I putting a new roof on. But you have to say, maybe, at least in my approach, like, I agree with you. That's a huge ask. But also you have to think maybe this buyer's a first-time home buyer and a roof's a big ticket item. And like you said, even with the utility bill, can we find a happy medium? Maybe we split the cost of a roof. Maybe we get a home warranty. Maybe we repair the current roof. But we set the tone. We really do in all of these relationships. If we come in hostile and wanting to put up a fight, and that doesn't mean, we still obviously have our client's best interest and we do go to bat, but it's picking and choosing those battles and using common sense when doing so.
Exactly.
It is. And listen, this made me think of something. Julie, I'm glad you brought it up about the tone, because there are occasions, and I've said this to you guys as brokers, and I've said it to agents, where you can't send an email or text message. You have to pick up the phone and talk to the other person, because when you're talking to the other person, it's really easy to understand what their tone is and what they're trying to say. Because when you text, it might be a great text, but they might take
the tone is hard to understand. Yeah.
So again, I get technology is awesome, but you know what we forget is we are in a people. This is still a people business. It's still a people business, and again, you have to use discernment and wisdom as to when you can use technology to help you and when you have to put the phone down or pick the phone up rather and call them. And say, hey, and that might, Madison, I can remember if I was asking for a roof, that might be a situation where I send an email and then I pick up the phone and say, hey, I sent an email asking for a roof. Hey, here's the inspection and here's the reasons.
Right.
Yeah, here are the feelings behind it,
Right.
The other thing is the agent, they might have been a little cold maybe early on, but again, at the end of the day, we're all in this business. We're all trying to work towards the same goal, but they're like, they understand. You're like, oh my gosh, you're right. You're right. Because if you're talking and you do it in a professional and a humble and polite manner, it's kind of hard. I mean, some people are just jerks. I get it. But most people, they respond in kind, right? To how you talk to them, they're going to talk to you the same way.
Yeah, and let me just throw this other thing in too. I had a broker call me. This is several months ago. He was so angry. He was a broker and the agent on a transaction. He was calling me about one of my agents. I don't even remember what the situation was, but he called me just angry, and he was so mean and nasty. I couldn't even really understand what he was upset about. But he was, and so I was just like, whoa, calm down, take a breath, tell me what's going on. But he was so angry, and he was saying horrible things. And then he, and it kind of put me on the defensive right away, because the agent he was talking about was one of my very best agents. And I couldn't imagine her behaving the way that he was accusing her. So of course I talked to her, but then literally 90 seconds later, he called me back and apologized. And he said the reason he was upset was, and I don't even remember the details, was something about his elderly mom or grandmother was very sick and dying. And he was upset about that. And that's what made him react the way he did.
Right.
So sometimes, yes, he was wrong in the way he talked to me, but sometimes people, sometimes people act the way they do, not because of you or your agent, but there's something else behind it. It's not always. Sometimes people are just plain jerks, for sure. But this guy at least had the decency to take a step back and apologize and explain why he was the way he was. So sometimes there's a reason behind the bad behavior, and so we, I gave him grace, of course, and then we had a good relationship the rest of the time. So, I just thought I'd throw that in.
That's good. That's good. Well, ladies, Ann, Julie, Madison, thank you so much for hopping on here. We're about 40 minutes in, but it's been great just communicating with you guys and gleaning from some of your wisdom. And hopefully we've been able to shed a little bit of light on communication this morning. So thank you. And Matt Langen, back to you.
Yeah, that was great, y'all. Communication, I feel it's obviously it's vastly underestimated in today's world. I feel like we think communication, it's kind of a standard, and we all just have it, and we all have great skills, but really in so many different channels out there, and just how the landscape's changing, it's an extremely important factor, not just in business but in life, as you all have already spoke to. And I really think, many conflicts start because someone holds an internal uncommunicated expectation. I think that's really where it all begins. And so I think what you all have said today, we're all in this together. Communication aligns all of us around shared goals, and it really prevents costly errors, as you guys have already indicated. So great topic today, and bringing up some of the stories and situations you've been in personally and in business. So good stuff. Great first episode. Did want to let everybody know, definitely comment below. We'll use that, and we'll address some of these on our next series, the next episode. But again, we'll try and get back to you even faster if we can. So feel free to comment any questions, comments in general, and we'll open up the next series, spend a few minutes addressing some of those too. But thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to promoting our next topic here soon, as we kind of stretch a little bit here and catch our wings and begin to drive this podcast forward. So thanks, Ann, thanks, Barry, thanks, Madison, thanks, Julie. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.